Slammiversary 2017 dropped right in the middle of the weirdest era in TNA history. Jeff Jarrett was back, Alberto Del Rio was getting the push, and they were trying to merge Global Force Wrestling with Impact Wrestling. Like anyone wanted to see that. But Slammiversary had to take place. And we're going to break it down match by match and look at why this show shouldn't have worked, but kind of did. To kick things off, we see the champions arriving backstage in the parking lot. I always like this. It makes it feel bigger for some reason. I don't know if it's because there's just a camera on them at all times and it's like a paparazzi feeling, but just seeing them arrive at the building gets me excited for their match. Lashley comes in with his American Top Team entourage, and there's an immediate combat sports feel to this main event. And while I don't really care about the participant that he will be going against, they're at least trying. We get a cold open narrated by Barry Scott over some classic TNA clips. And if you know that Slammiversary formula, you know that works pretty damn well. The nostalgia was hit. Also, this was a rare on-screen Barry Scott appearance. He would unfortunately pass away a few years later. But the show hits you right in the feels from the opening package. And then, an owl flies down the ramp and stares at the hard cam. This was just fantastic. Screw Pyro, give me more owls. On commentary, Don West and Robert Flores are filling in for Jeremy Borash and Josh Matthews, who are wrestling on this card. More on that later. We kick things off with a cross-promotional four-way tag team title match. Representatives from Impact Wrestling, AAA, Noah, and The Crash are all gathered on the ramp. Each promotion will have a team represented in this four-way tag. Representing The Crash would be Garza Jr. and Laredo Kid. AAA had Drago and El Hijo del Fantasma, who would go on to become Santos Escobar in the WWE. Pro Wrestling Noah had future X Division champion Taiji Ishimori and the ace of the promotion, Naomichi Marufuji. And the champions, Impact Wrestling, had LAX, Santana, and Ortiz, accompanied by Conan, Homicide, and Diamante. There is so much talent in this ring. Santana and Marufuji opened things up, and the crowd was just electric to start. Laredo Kid would also make an impression in his TNA debut, and it was just fast-paced chaos, no tags. Everyone was just going crazy. His partner Garza Jr. showed off some amazing moves and great charisma. I don't know why WWE doesn't use him more effectively. Diamante attempted a Hurricane Rana but got flipped onto people at ringside. She actually got hurt with that and had to limp through the rest of the match. Homicide hit a Gringo Killa on the apron, cause why not? And LAX would retain after an insane barrage. After the match, Conan would grab the microphone and say, "We're like the blue pill, cause we stay hard." Alright? This was an awesome opener though. I love big shows that open with like an international showcase or spot fest. It's just a great way to get the crowd going and set the stage for what should be an exciting night. Or at least I hope. Because we went backstage to Jeremy Borash and Joseph Park, and this one is concerning me. Their match tonight will be no disqualifications, which may help it out a bit. More on that later. Cause up next was our celebrity tag match. Eli Drake and Chris Adonis, heel mid-carders, would be taking on Moose and his celebrity partner, former NFL running back D'Angelo Williams. Alright? Moose said that the grand title is the most prestigious belt in the world. He needs to stop with that claim. But Chris Masters and LA Knight want the belt. I don't know why, but they do. Moose is outnumbered and he needs some backup, so he called a football player. Why not? The training montage looked promising. I mean, it shows him training with a young Jake something at Scott D'Amore's place, and he looks pretty decent. But let's see him in the ring. They make their entrance along with tight end Gary Barnage and NASCAR driver Austin Dillon. What is going on? There's also cheerleaders and Moose is playing the air guitar. It's quite the interesting vibe. Also, Roflo keeps calling Chris Adonis Chris Masters, but what's the difference, right? To kick things off, D'Angelo just has his way with Eli Drake and Chris Adonis. Moose is actually doing way worse. Eli Drake miserably botches a springboard attempt, but Moose needs the tag. And D'Angelo's got his shirt off now and he looks like a beast. He comes in for a hot tag and is just an absolute natural. He needs to forget about football, just join TNA, get in the X Division, do something. He hits a cannonball and a frog splash, but the table no-sells the frog splash finish. They pick up the win, and after the match, Moose decides that wasn't good enough and powerbombs Drake through the table. I guess you could say they called an audible. D'Angelo Williams had one of the best celebrity wrestling appearances ever, and this was really way better than it had any right of being. It was fun. But up next, we were getting serious. It was a strap match. EC3 had previously given James Storm 31 lashings with a strap. Bruce Pritchard, the authority figure at the time, unfortunately, told EC3 that he needs to find his balls for some reason. So he attacked him, God bless. Then EC3 would dress up as Woody from Toy Story, lock up James Storm with handcuffs, and torture him with a strap. That's how we got here. As for the match, Storm would dominate early and choke and lash EC3 with the strap. Handcuffs were teased by EC3, but Storm got the best of that as well, locking up EC3. He returned EC3's 31 lashings with 32 of his own. EC3 fought back with a 1%er, Storm kicked out. Storm would hit the last call super kick, but then collapse. EC3 would hoist him up with almost a J-Driller type spike move that he didn't do before this. This would confirm that James Storm was indeed knocked out, and they were teasing that it was from the earlier post shot that his head took. They were working a concussion angle, and they brought out the whole medical team, and even Bob Ryder was there. But forget that shit, we gotta go backstage, cause Dutch Mantell and Karen Jarrett are frantically searching for Bruce Pritchard. Just an absolute nightmare blunt rotation. James Storm is still being helped to the back, but here comes the Pope. And you know what that means. It's time for this long feud over a commentary desk spot to finally be settled. Now, this storyline was absolutely horrible, but if you watch the video package, it would make you think it's award-winning television. I think it was Kevin Sullivan on the video team at this time, not the Taskmaster. But he just absolutely nailed this shit. I mean, this sucked. But man, this told a story. Jeremy Borash introduced his lawyer, Joseph Park. Josh Matthews introduced his insurance policy, Scott Steiner. And things weren't looking great for them, which is why JB motivated Park to find his inner monster. Which, if you know Joseph Park and his brother, Abyss, that may not be hard to find. Now, on paper, this match is god-awful. But in execution, it's interesting. Josh Matthews kicked things off with some flips and even a disaster kick attempt. All right, Cody. The brawl would eventually spill backstage, which is where the real action started. Matthews and Steiner would chase their opponents, finding a golf cart to speed up the process. JB and Joseph Park were waiting for him, though, with a fire extinguisher. They get sprayed with the fire extinguisher, and Scott Steiner says he tastes tapioca. They get back on track when they carjack some hillbillies and try to run over Jeremy Borash and Joseph Park. Josh Matthews stalks Jeremy Borash towards a hotel pool, which JB swantons into. They spent too much time in the water, though, because some royalty-free Jaws music started playing, and Shark Boy appeared, biting Josh Matthews in the ass. You're probably wondering what's going on with Steiner and Joseph Park. Well, Steiner sent Park through a wall. But luckily, the sinister minister himself, James Mitchell, appeared to a massive pop, handing an Abyss mask to Joseph Park. This match finally returned to the ringside area, where Gail Kim's celebrity chef husband, Robert Irvine, shoved Josh to the ground. Shark Boy's music hits, big pop, he gets his ass kicked. Who will save Jeremy Borash? Well, it's none other than the monster, Abyss. James Mitchell hands him the thumbtacks, they're dumped on the canvas, and so is Josh Matthews getting black hole slammed onto the thumbtacks. Jeremy Borash follows up with a splash onto the tacks for the win. You can see the tacks and the blood dripping off of Jeremy Borash's hand. This was ridiculous fun for the dumbest, and when I say dumbest, I mean dumbest of feuds. Speaking of dumbest, let's head to the back for Alberto El Patron, who cuts a promo threatening his challenger Lashley, as well as Donald Trump. But next was Full Metal Mayhem. It was Eddie and Alicia Edwards against Davey Richards and Angelina Love. One of the best tag teams in TNA history, the Wolves, had exploded. and the wives were involved. Eddie and Alicia would ambush them to start, and we got a plunder-heavy brawl. Thumbtacks were poured into Eddie's mouth before Davey kicked him into the crowd for a near fall. Alicia powerbombed Angelina through a table. Eddie Sunset flip powerbombed Davey through a table. This went under 10 minutes, but I mean, it was absolutely packed with action. This is one of the rare cases where I would say a match probably could have gotten more time. I mean, this was a really personal feud between two members of a pretty prestigious tag team in TNA. But I think creative had shifted and they didn't really want to tell too much of this story, and that's why they got less than 10 minutes. But they made the most of it and we got some highlight reel spots for it, so I can't complain. Things calmed down a bit with a 2 out of 3 Falls X Division title match between Sonjay, Dutt, and Low Key. This feud was pretty underrated. Both of them had eye injuries going into it, kind of coincidentally, but it became part of the story, an eye for an eye, yeah, you get it. Not like Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio, we didn't get any eyes fully removed, but maybe that's what this feud was missing. We did get a kick-ass 2 out of 3 Falls match though. The first fall Low Key took with a Warrior's Way, where he would show more urgency to close things out and shut out Sonjay Dutt. Dutt knew he was fighting from behind and looked for every opportunity to secure a fall. He would catch Low Key in a flash pin to tie things up. And by this time, Low Key had ripped off part of his suit, so you know shit was about to get real. There was great pacing here, great psychology. I really liked this match. Low Key would set up Dutt in the Tree of Woe to try to stomp his ass, but Dutt countered with a moonsault stomp of his own, which is just always amazing to watch. This was just a clean, good title defense. Good pro wrestling right here. I really liked Low Key in his Hitman era. It was much better than his diving suit era. Our co-main event was here. It was a title unification match. The Impact Knockouts champ, Rosemary, against the Global Force Wrestling champ, Sienna. In previous weeks, Sienna had ended Rosemary's undefeated streak before the pay-per-view for some reason. I feel like we could have waited for this show for that. That seemed like a pretty big moment. She had been undefeated for over a year. But regardless, these two had a decent feud together and the video package shined again. I don't know what it is with this guy, but he can make any feud just look magical. Rosemary would make her entrance with Undead Bridesmaids, Sienna with Laurel Van Ness or Chelsea Green, and her kayfabe cousin, KM. Did Sienna need a cousin? Why not? The match was off to a hot start with Rosemary diving to the outside and the crowd fully behind her. It didn't take long before this match got super overbooked. Earl Hebner would get pulled out by Laurel Van Ness before Allie chased her away with a kendo stick. Rosemary would go for the mist, but Sienna would block it with her hand and smear it into Rosemary's eyes. Sienna would then tap her out with a choke and unify the women's championship. There were a lot of shenanigans here, and you know, it wasn't a Matt classic, but it was fun for what it was, and there was a great near fall towards the end. I actually kind of like the finish too. I think it's pretty creative. Jeremy Borash was back with bandages on his hands, and he introduced Jeff Jarrett, who just couldn't stay away from this show. And I don't blame him. We had a damn owl earlier. Jarrett stresses that they're short on time, so unfortunately, he only has a little bit of time to talk about himself. He says all the typical TNA history, rah-rah, and thanks us for buying the Jarrett groceries all these years. You're welcome, Jeff. It was short and to the point, thankfully, because next was the main event, the championship unification match, Bobby Lashley and Alberto El Patron. Lashley was a confident beast, backed by King Mo and the rest of American Top Team. And Alberto was a family man, having his father Dos Caras in his corner, and his mediocre brother. Hell, even his girlfriend Paige was in the crowd under a mask. More on that later. This whole babyface family man thing is great, whatever. Could it be anyone but Alberto Del Rio? I mean, that is about the least qualified candidate for this role, and as a result, I can't get behind this. The presentation's good, the idea's good on paper, hell, even Alberto is a good worker. But just watch him. I'm not cheering for this guy, especially with how authentic Bobby Lashley feels. There's a shit ton of people in the ring to start things off. It's got that boxing style once again. It's kind of cool. I see what they're going for. Lashley would start the match largely in control, with Alberto being aggressive and just throwing bombs here and there. Alberto would attempt a suicide dive and crash and burn. He also did a cool tornado DDT into his cross arm breaker, which Lashley power bombed out of. This dude is a freak. Lashley did a John Cena impression and an AA from the second rope for a near fall. King Mo looked to get involved with a steel chair, but Alberto's father, Dos Caras, got involved and low-blowed King Mo. Lashley would go over to the senior citizen and push him, but he took his eyes off the prize, and Alberto took advantage of that. And in this key moment, you can see Bobby Lashley lost his headband. If you know anything about TNA lore, Lashley's power is stored in the headband. Anyway, Alberto just hits a stomp in the ropes and wins. Don West said it was one of the greatest things he's ever seen. That is a very vague and unfounded compliment to give. I love you, Don. I love you, DW, but this isn't even one of the greatest things on this show. In fact, it could be the worst. And I'll tell you why. Executives celebrated with Alberto to close the show as he embraces his family and his new championship belt. Well, 10 days later, Alberto El Patron would be suspended after a domestic incident with Paige. This ceremonious victory was pointless. Now, this is one of the worst eras in TNA history. There is no denying that. But this show had charm. Don West and Roflo for a makeshift commentary team were pretty awesome. Hyperbole and dead naming aside. Also, this card had great variety. There were wild spot fests, a cinematic comedy match, hardcore wrestling, technical wrestling. I mean, you name it. And I think that's good when you're putting out one of the biggest shows of the year. You kind of want to put a platter of everything you have to offer. Also, the crowd was pretty damn hot. I don't know what they were excited for, but they were ready to have a good time, and I think they did. They definitely helped the overall atmosphere of the show, considering it was just in the Impact Zone like most of their weekly television. Also, did I mention this show started with an owl flying down the ramp and looking at us through the hard cam? And then it ended in the champion getting suspended. So not the best Slammiversary, but it definitely has a special place in my heart, and I think there's a lot of care and effort that went into it, especially compared to the pay-per-view that would air later that year, Bound for Glory, one of the worst. What do those two have in common? Alberto Del Dipshit. Make sure to like and subscribe for more wrestling shit.